So what we're going to do here, Steve, this is a floodplains death adder from Northern Territory.
Doing what death adders do best. That's
Exactly
why they're
right.
hard to see. And that's just grass, not leaf litter.
This is a Barkly Tablelands death adder from the Barkly Tablelands, so you can see the pretty big difference in patterning there.
That's
Jara
so
death adder.
cute. Look at that, gorgeous little thing.
That's a big thing I've come across in my lifetime, is when people ask you for advice. A lot of the time they want an identification. And they say, mate, I saw a snake in my yard. It was brown and looked like it had a bit of a yellow belly. Well, that really doesn't help us out at all when it comes to snake identification. It'd be like me saying I had a dog in the yard that was brown with a white spot, or was it? And the reason it doesn't, as you can see, it's so variable when it comes to colour. I know these guys are different species these days, but they're still death adders. They're still in that same Acanthopus genus. And so variable in colour. And this is only the three that I've got, you know. There's, still another half a dozen to a dozen, probably different types of adders that live around the country.
I'm quite familiar with the northern and the southern death adder myself, and they look completely different. The ones around Perth, actually, they're some of my favourites in the hills.
What are they over there?
They get a dark red Antarcticus.
Yeah, right.
But they're a disjunct population of Antarcticus. And they're quite hard to find. You've got to go out in specific conditions.
Well, look, it's the same with these guys over here. In all of my time, which is almost 20 odd years of actively looking for snakes, I found, I'd say 2.5. I've come across 3 wild ones, but one of them was because a passenger on the train pointed one out next to the track.
Oh, wow.
I pulled up to show him a flowering grevillea, how beautiful it was, and a passenger a few rows back, she yelled out, "Will, you like snakes? There's one out here next to the line." And I looked out, I don't know how she saw it, but death adder curled up in the leaf litter and the gravel right on the side of the line. So I didn't really find that one, but I've even been over to the infamous Maggie Island
Oh, wow.
to try and find them over there, never found a single one.
Hang on.
So Steve, before you asked me what my favourite snake was, and I think you got a little bit surprised by my answer because it wasn't the coastal taipan. I love death adders. I've always been absolutely fascinated by death adders ever since I was a little kid. I don't know why. I like the way they look. As I got older and I found out a little bit more about how they hunt, maybe that convergent evolution, you know, the similarities between the death adder and other viper species from overseas. Everything about them I just found fascinating. And you can see this girl, this floodplains one, she's doing it now. Part of the reason I love them so much is this ambush predator system. They're not a very fast snake when it goes from moving from point A to point B. So sort of running down or slithering after prey to catch it is impossible for these guys. They sit there, curled up, and once again this is on grass, but if you can imagine underneath leaf litter, and that little tail, the subcaudal lure right at the end there. It's flicking around like a little worm, trying to attract a quail or a gecko or a little rodent, and we just happen to have one here. He's been prepared earlier, and when he gets within strike range,
Blink and you'll miss it.
yeah, so when it happens, it's quick.
Is that typical caudal luring for this snake?
Yeah.
That's interesting because the northern, the local ones that I normally see, I've got a very rapid caudal lure.
Yeah. Look, the Barkly's Tablelands do it, really rapid. But this one's always just cool as a cucumber, just seems to just want to sway it back and forth. Whether that's something that's just genetic or whether they've had luck with that in the past, so they stick with it, I don't know.
I reckon it's locality based. It'd be on what the typical prey might be. That's just a guess, but...
And then what's amazing, you know, is once that prey, as you saw, was in strike range, I mean, that strike's the quickest strike out of any snake on the planet. And with that really fast strike that you just saw, this is where a lot of people come unstuck. They're very cool, calm, sedentary sort of a snake. But under the right circumstances, like I said, they turn into the world's fastest striking snake, at which point the human body is not capable of processing a reaction to get away from it before you're bitten. And I found that out firsthand, like a lot of snake keepers. When they're young, I was 19? Young, dumb, and full of courage, full of bravery. And yeah, look, I had a snake that I thought was constipated. Had a massive swelling in it. This death had a big swelling, and I was really worried about it. I wanted to try and massage it, so I went to pin it behind the back of the head. And I learnt firsthand just how quickly that snake could bite. It bit me on the fingers before I even had enough time to apply enough pressure to hold its head still. Like, it was lightning flash sort of stuff. I couldn't... It took me a little while to figure out that I'd been bitten. It happened so quick.
Wow.
I was very lucky. I got my partner at the time. She applied first aid straight away, and she did it brilliantly. So I didn't have any effects from the venom while that first aid was on. We got to the emergency room at Rocky Base Hospital. They all had a bit of a talk, and it took about 5 hours for them to get everything ready upstairs in the ICU to transfer me up there. And that whole time the bandage was on, I felt fine. But once we got up there into the ICU, the doctor pulled me aside and she spoke to me about the tactic that they wanted to take, which was not administer any antivenin, but just to undo the bandage and just monitor me. Seeing as how I was working in zoos at the time, there was a good chance I'd get bitten again. They didn't want to give me antivenin if I didn't need it. So they took off the bandage, about 15 minutes, and I was unconscious.
Yeah. Wow.
Woke up about 2.5 days later. Apparently did regain consciousness a couple of times, but I can't remember it, to tell you the truth. So. Yeah, it was a life-changing experience. Like I said, young and dumb and confident up until that moment. The doctor spoke to me. She said, look, we're going to take the bandage off. We're going to do everything that we can in our power to save you, and we've got a really good chance of pulling you through this, but you've got to understand that it's not guaranteed. Like, there's no warranty with this. We don't know how your body's going to react. So, before we take the bandage off, if there's anything that you would like to say to anyone, now's the time. And I don't know if you've ever been in that situation, but it's not nice. My son was 3 months old at the time, and he can't understand English or anything, but I just held him and just told him, if anything goes wrong, just try and grow up to be a good person, and you can't help but get really emotional about it. When I woke up, 2.5 days later, I felt like I had the worst hangover I've ever experienced, but I was so happy just to be awake. So since then, I have really learnt the lesson. I've never been bitten by anything toxic, I guess, life-threatening. A couple of little mishaps, like I said, with the lesser black whip snake and the curl snake, but nothing life-threatening. I know there's people out there that never have been. They've done lifelong careers with snakes and never been bitten. And
Me so far, touch wood.
Yeah, no, that's good. But you've got the right attitude, Steve. I know more people than not that probably need to be bitten.
I get you.
Yeah, very confident, very cocky, have been very lucky so far. But one day, they're going to be walking around in shorts and thongs, and they're going to have a 7-foot taipan latched onto their thigh. And that's when things are going to go south real quick. So no better way to develop a respect for these animals than actually to live through it, to have it happen to you.
I had enough close calls when I was young that I pulled my head in after a while.
Yeah.
But it's the thing, young men do stupid things.
Exactly.
Yeah, for me it was tiger snakes.
Yeah. I know a lot of people out there like to keep snakes in, racks. That's fine. I personally don't get any enjoyment out of it. Venomous snakes as it is need to be kept inside, locked up in rooms. I do have sunning pits. So when I'm out in the yard, mowing, gardening, doing whatever, I'll bring out a snake, I stick it outside, and let it have a day outside on out here. So that's what we got in here at the moment. Everything is under lock and key. And in here I've got a red belly. That was given to me by a nice bloke. Very knowledgeable and accomplished snake catcher and keeper, Brian James. And this is a snake that Brian had for quite some time. And he wanted to get out of it. It's a bit of a feisty red belly, this snake, so maybe with Brian might be a bit much for him. It's actually got a queen green ant riding its head there.
That's another interest of yours, isn't it?
Yeah, I do like ants. Some could call me an amateur myrmecologist.
What's that word, sorry?
Myrmecologist.
Myrmecologist.
So myrmecology, you know, to study ants. So that's a female queen green tree ant on the red belly's head there. Perfect conditions today in far north Queensland, and the female, the queens, they're flying at the moment. So I've actually had my partner out and she's been catching a few of them. Believe it or not, there's those of us who like to look after venomous snakes, and there's other people who like to look after ants. So the ones that my missus has collected will actually go to captive collections down south.
You know what my new hobby is? Pitcher plants.
Pitcher plants, I can understand that. So with these pits, I mean, I like getting them out here during the day, and whether it's raining, whether it's sunlight, whether it's hot, whether it's cold, I think it's all good stuff for them. Like, it's all enrichment, it's all very different. There's smells in there, like I put different things in there. I put in skins from other snakes, I put in a bit of hay. I just put in different bits and pieces, just enrichment. It's something that we did a lot of in zoos, especially with mammals and birds. With reptiles, it's probably not that important, and a lot of people probably overlook it, but I like doing it. I do see reactions out of them. They do get interested. There's a lot of tongue flicking. Sometimes they're trying to suss out what it is, push it around the enclosure a little bit. Sometimes they get upset. I might take a bag of dog fur, just, you know, brush the dog, and I get all the fur, all the shedding off the dog, and put a bunch of dog fur in there for the snakes. I don't like it, but it's stimulus, you know, it's mental stimulus. So I think that's something that's not done enough of.
Enrichment with reptiles is something overlooked a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, it's trying to get that ant off.
I can understand.
Is that an FNQ one?
Sorry?
Is that North Queensland red
From
belly?
what I know, yeah.
They might eventually be a different species. I'm not sure what.
Well, you saw the underbelly. Like,
yeah.
like no red.
The red bellies without the red belly.
Yeah.
Nice.
Merton's water monitor. This one was given to me by Peter Krause. Lovely bloke.
Krause.
It's probably about 3 years old now. I'd like to get a couple more. I think they're awesome animals. It seems like one of those monitors is getting a little bit harder and harder to find. Yeah. Once upon a time, everyone seemed to have Mertons, but these days it's all about Lacey. So everyone's got a Lacey, trying to hand rear it and walk it around the yard like a dog and stuff. I think Mertons are pretty neat.
Monitors, they're far more intelligent than most people would think.
Yeah, and once again, the enrichment with these guys, I think, is paramount.
Yeah.
I mean, even just from giving it a really wide variety of food. You know, like with the Mertons, obviously they got that whole aquatic menu. So anything from prawns and crabs and mollusks and different fish, like obviously day-old chicks and everything, you know, and then you can present it to it in different ways. Sometimes we might just get like a fish paste or something, and I'll just rub it on the sides of the enclosure.
Yeah.
And the monitor just comes and licks it and checks it all out. Or even if I'm cleaning out the mice, I get all the old bedding out that smells like mouse poo and pee and everything, and I'll just toss that in there. And I'll spend 8 hours going through it, you know, trying to find the mouse that they can smell. There's nothing in there. I might give them one at the end for a bit of a treat, but it's just about keeping them active. This is a black-headed python that a mate of mine gave me a few years back. Lovely animal. And I kept it outside. I know we live in the wet tropics, and a lot of people would say, look, it's just too wet, too humid here for a blackhead. I find that as long as you give them something nice and dry to go into, that needs a bit of a clean out, so excuse the bloody poo there, but yeah, snake does fine outside. Early in the morning, you know, he's out basking in the sunlight, disappears by about lunchtime. On a nice warm night, it's cool to see him down here out and about active, so I give him food. And really that's the only bit of the enclosure I need to clean, is when I open up the hides and I'll change up the wood shavings in there. But with everything else, at night time, there's little cockroaches and slaters and the clean-up crew that go to work and break down any poo that's outside, skin, those sorts of things. So I think keeping snakes outside, not only is it good for the snake itself, but it's a lot less maintenance than keeping them inside. I mean, still he's got a mulga spirit, but he's just a sad case.
So this is the disabled mulga.
Yeah, disabled mulga. Look, I keep him because he's not in any pain. He eats well. He's healthy, but he was born with some skeletal issues.
What's his temperament like?
Well, usually he's all right, but he's a bit keen today to move around for obvious reasons. I try to get him out in the sun because I sort of figure that the more vitamin D3 he gets, probably the better for his skeleton. But I mean, he's born with it, so it's not going to get any better, but I'm hoping that it just doesn't get worse from giving him sort of every couple of days to get him out here and give him a good bask in the sun. But see how he goes.
I really like this enclosure.
Yeah, so this was I actually picked it up off Gumtree. I think Mel found it. It was a dog box. The guy had his big like little Arab things that would come and sleep in at night, and it was all covered in sort of cement fibre and stuff.
They just got rid of one. Don't tell me that.
Yeah, they wanted to get rid of it, so I sort of changed it up a bit. And these days it's got my Panoptes in there, the yellow spotted monitors. So you see there's a couple of chicken eggs around there. That's just actually from the other day. I put chicken eggs in there, I cover it in a whole bunch of mulch, and eventually they suss them out. And I see they've exposed them. I put about 6 in there, so I don't know how many they've eaten. And then once again, when I first got these guys, which was about 3 years ago, I was worried about living in far north Queensland with our wet seasons, how constantly being wet was going to affect these guys. So I did give them a nice big outdoor dry box to get into. But since I've done that, we're starting to see a bit of a resurgence in Varanus Panoptes in Cairns. Actually just across the road from where I live, around the airport. We're starting to see a few of them around. So I think the cane toads did a massive number on them when they were first introduced, and we just haven't seen Panoptes since. You know, Lacey seemed to be the dominant monitor in the area, but as the Panoptes come back. So there's one in there, that's the male. So they got this dry box, they get in there, and I filled up with sand, and they like to get in there and dig around and carry on. I wanted to give them sort of some rocks in there they could dig under, but I get worried that if they dig under it too much, the rocks going to fall on top of them. So he's about 3 years old now, and both of these little fellas were from Peter Krause.
A bit of a chicken treat tonight.
Yeah, just to help bulk it up a bit.
Chickens are sometimes food, obviously, but
yeah, well, we don't like to do this all the time. He likes rats and small chickens, but I haven't been able to get a hold of any recently, so I find that
what a lazy strike.
I know. Don't fall off, fool. But I find that it just fills the gaps. And for bigger snakes, if you just have a little bit of problem trying to get a hold of good food, it shuts them right up. There's a water python out the back there.
Does the water python put on a bit more of a show?
Oh, sometimes. You hungry? No. He much prefers... Oh, no, there you go, fine. I was just about to say he much prefers whole animals. I've never really had him take chicken like that. So.
Oh, okay.
And he's an ex-Hartley's animal.
Oh, yeah.
That apparently bit people too much, so there was no real reason for him.
Yeah, I've got ex-Hartley stuff.
This guy was an ex-pet. It got too big.
Yeah.
I didn't want him anymore.
Pretty chunky at that size.
Yeah, well actually when I got him, which was probably about 6 months ago, he was really quite thin. Not quite a rake handle thin, but not far off, eh? They were feeding him mice, and they said, oh, he wants to eat more than like 2 mice every fortnight. Yeah, he will. So yeah, we're sort of trying to get a bit of condition back on him. And we've actually got a nice lady coming down from the Tablelands tomorrow morning. She's bringing down a load of young roosters. So.
Oh. Yeah, mate.
That'll come in handy. So Emma's named after a dear friend of mine, because Emma was born the day she passed away, actually. So,
Oh.
yeah, get a bit sentimental sometimes with my snakes, naming them after friends and stuff. But Emma was that twin I told you about a little bit earlier on. So she was born at 8 grams. So about a third of the weight of her brothers and sisters. She's now coming on 4 years old at this size. I mean, inland taipans aren't the quickest growing snake, but her siblings, which are on display, like I said, up at Hartley's and other places, they're a lot bigger. So she did have, yeah, like I said, quite a lot of TLC when she was little.
Coastal was checking it out.
Yeah. But yeah, she's fine now. She eats like a pig.
How old's that now?
About 4 years.
Yeah.
And that's what I have found actually with inland taipans versus coastals, the growth rate on the innies, although some people will argue, but I do find the growth rates on the innies are a lot slower than what they are on the coastal.
Yeah.
But yeah, she just doesn't have the head that he's got on him with the girth. So this is a coastal that a mate of mine, Shane, gave me. Female.
We love Shane.
We do love Shane. He's a good kid. So you want to come in, darling? Come on. And she's a good snake. I found she had a bit of an attitude on her when she first came, but no, she's quite right down these days. But she's actually gone and dirtied her water bowl. So, where's that done? I'll just take that out and clean it out and stick it back in after. So she's about 2 years old, this girl.